In my past life, I was a notorious street punk. She was the radiant, aloof campus goddess. We had secretly pledged our lives to each other, but a top student stood in our way, because he had a crush on her too. He believed I would drag her down into the mud, so he intercepted the note I passed to her asking to meet. I died in a car crash waiting for her alone. 8 years later, she found out the truth, broke down, and dragged him to hell with her. The top student no longer tries to stop us. He wants to watch us suffer together. Worse than dogs. Chapter 1. After school. Just like in my previous life, I handed the note to my desk mate, David, so he wouldn't get suspicious. I slapped his shoulder and said, "Hey, bro, pass this to Willow for me. Got it? If you screw this up, you're dead meat." David glanced at me, a flash of disdain flickering in his eyes. I've always had a reputation for being unserious, and because of that, he saw me as a slacker destined to become a street punk. In my past life, I respected him as a top student, so when I overheard him calling me arrogant behind my back, I still remained polite and respectful to him. But in this life, all those good impressions have vanished. I just talked to him the way I normally would, just like before. He politely took the note and said softly, "Okay, he and Willow are neighbors and have a decent relationship," which is why I asked him to pass the note. The college entrance exam is tomorrow. I had a lot on my mind and wanted to see Willow in person, give her some encouragement. But David always assumed I'd use dirty tricks to win Willow over. He thought I'd pull her down with me. So in the past life, he threw away my note and never mentioned it when he saw her later that day. But this time, he's been reborn. He'll deliver the note to Willow, not because I asked, but because of the hatred burning in his heart. Chapter 2. In my past life, I had no idea David despised me. He was the total package, good-looking, brilliant, universally acknowledged as a top student, courteous to everyone, well-mannered, and also the class committee leader. All the teachers held him in high regard. I admired him too. So even when the teacher deliberately made him my desk mate, hoping the model student would somehow reform the delinquent, I didn't feel upset. On the contrary, I even felt honored. He was so outstanding that just sitting next to him felt like basking in a little bit of his academic glory. Because of that, I held back. I watched my mouth, put away my phone and all the off-topic books, just so I wouldn't distract him from studying. I saw him as a real talent. I genuinely wanted to be friends with him, even forbidding my own boys from saying anything rude about him. So when my dad found out I was sitting next to a top student and sneered at me, cursing like always, "What good is studying? Better to be born lucky than to study hard," I completely snapped. I grabbed a stool and went at him. By the time our neighbor casually called the police, like it was routine, and the local officers strolled in like they knew the drill, I'd already taken several kicks. But my dad didn't get off easy either. The stool smashed into his back, tearing a bloody rip in his t-shirt. To my classmates, I was the classic bad student, and with that label came mockery and disdain. David looked down on me too. He just couldn't be bothered to show it. Until Willow and I started dating in secret. David never thought Willow did anything wrong. In his eyes, it had to be me, the lowlife, with some underhanded tricks, seducing the aloof campus goddess and pulling her down into the gutter. So, in his mind, any little flirtation between me and Willow was nothing but dirty tactics. That's why, when he quietly pocketed my note and never gave it to her, he didn't feel the slightest guilt. All he felt was a sense of righteous accomplishment, like he had saved an innocent girl from disaster. Even after learning about my tragic death in the past life, he didn't feel bad. He just chalked it up to coincidence. Bad luck. Deep down, he believed it was exactly what I deserved. I'm Makoto, a notorious street punk with terrible grades, a screwed-up family, broke and reckless, and I had the audacity to try to drag the untouchable goddess off her pedestal. Of course I was bound to die. David, on the other hand, always stood tall on his moral high ground, a beacon of righteousness. Chapter 3. In this life, David handed the note to Willow. On the very night that had torn us apart in the past life, I saw her under the streetlight, just like we'd agreed. She ran toward me, a little out of breath. Her fair skin flushed pink. Beads of sweat clung to her short hair, and her dark eyes shimmered as if soaked in water. I held up a small box of ice cream, smiling at her. Sea salt chocolate, her favorite flavor. Willow had fair skin, a high nose bridge, delicate curved brows, and a beautiful smile. Of course, she was beautiful even when she wasn't smiling. She had a kind of naive blankness in her gaze, a side effect of being socially awkward, which made people at school call her the flower on the distant peak. David was always top of the science class. Willow was number 1 in liberal arts. Their parents were both university professors, living across the hall from each other. From every angle, they looked like the perfect match, but the one Willow liked was me. She once joked that we were born in the wrong era. 20 years ago, a poor guy and a rich girl falling in love would have been the plot of a best-selling romance novel. But these days, it's all about marrying within your league. To everyone else, I was just the toxic supporting character. I didn't respond. I scooped out the last spoonful of ice cream and fed it to her. In her dark, gleaming pupils, There was a boy smiling like an idiot. She took the ice cream into her mouth, blinked. Utterly heart-stopping. I was just about to kiss her, when she suddenly grabbed my hand and pressed it against her chest, just slightly to the left. Thump thump, thump thump. Through the cool, silky fabric of her shirt, I felt the wild rhythm of her heartbeat. She looked up at me, her eyes soft and full of emotion. I whispered, "Willow, you'll always be the heroine of my story." She blinked again and threw herself into my arms, hugging me tight. Such a cheesy line. Say it again, but better. That kind of question was harder than any math problem. A few seconds passed, and then she laughed softly. "You're so dumb. Why would I ever hate your cheesy lines?" So I gave up on words, and kissed her instead. The kiss was long, intense, breathless, until we had no air left in our lungs. She leaned against my chest, breathing hard, listening to the loud pounding of my heart through my ribcage. "Makoto, the college entrance exams tomorrow. Don't forget our promise." "I won't." My lips brushed the top of her head, my breath making her scalp tingle. She smiled and let me hold her hand as we walked through the summer night in the park. David knew Willow and I had made a promise about the exam, but he didn't know what it was. He guessed that I must have begged Willow to bomb the test on purpose, to get into some low-tier junior college with me. When I heard that theory, I was speechless. This was the genius top student. How did that kind of logic not interfere with his grades? Did he really think the girl he'd been secretly in love with for years had the IQ of a potato? No will of her own, just a clay doll anyone could mold. Or did he believe I'd cast some kind of mind-warping spell that dropped people's intelligence like a rock? Our promise was actually pretty simple. Willow would apply to the top journalism program in the country, and I'd do my best to get into a second-tier university in the same city. We kept it secret because Willow's family wouldn't let her study journalism. Her parents wanted her to study medicine and become a respected doctor at a top-tier hospital. In our past life, David, driven by his self-righteousness and so-called love for Willow, decided to keep my note from her, thinking he was saving her from my influence. That decision destroyed the three of us. Hopefully this time, it's not too late. At 8:30, I walked Willow home and returned to my place. To my surprise, my dad wasn't drunk, wasn't yelling either. He was sitting in the living room, watching soccer with his legs crossed. When he saw me come in, he just grunted, "Where the hell you been? Go to bed. I've got stuff to do tomorrow. You're on your own getting to the exam." Not like I ever expected him to take me anyway. I shrugged and went back to my room. While changing clothes, I stared at my reflection in the mirror, and for the first time in a long while, I thought, I'm alive. Every breath I take moves my chest. Every word I say stirs the air. Everything about me is alive. I didn't die. I'm not some powerless ghost watching everything fall apart again. I clenched my fists. This time, I'll walk into the exam hall like everyone else my age. This time, maybe, just maybe, I'll walk toward the future with Willow by my side. This time, I am the main character. Chapter 4. The final bell of the last exam rang. I put down my pen, my arm aching from the tension of writing nonstop. Outside the exam hall, parents stood under the scorching sun, holding drinks and craning their necks, waiting eagerly. Some students clustered together, anxiously comparing answers. Others were surrounded by their parents, leaving like conquering heroes. The first person I saw was David. Unlike the buzzing crowd around him, he didn't look excited. In the past, I might have admired that calmness, but now I know, he's just repeating what he already lived once. David walked straight up to me. "Makoto, how did you do?" he asked. He rarely lowered himself to talk to me first. Maybe he wanted to confirm his assumptions. "Not bad," I answered honestly. I think I might just hit the cutoff for second-tier universities. I didn't bother pretending to care how he did. He'd already gotten into a top-tier university in our last life. This time around, he'd only do better. David, Willow, and I were in the same exam center. While we were chatting, Willow showed up with 2 bottles of iced tea in her arms. She gave me a soft smile and handed me one. Then, hesitating slightly, she turned to David and asked, "Want one?" David shook his head awkwardly and asked, "How did you do?" From the way he looked at Willow, I caught a flash of disdain and hatred. He clearly, desperately, wanted to see her fall. The thought made my mood sour. A sharp, smoldering anger rose inside me. Willow didn't seem to notice anything off. She nodded politely. "Not bad," she said lightly. David looked a little surprised and asked instinctively, "You didn't mess up?" Willow blinked. "I don't think so." He paused, then shook his head, gave me a long look, and walked away. Willow glanced back, puzzled. "What's up with him?" I sipped my drink and said flatly, "Shouldn't you know what's up with your childhood friend?" Willow shook her head seriously. "He's not my childhood friend." We walked out of the exam center holding hands. The local news crew was filming outside, doing a segment on the college entrance exam. A reporter with a microphone stood near the gates, interviewing a student. It was David. Willow and I instinctively let go of each other's hands. But it was too late. The camera panned right past us. That night, we were all over the local news. Campus couple walks out of college entrance exam hand in hand. The whole world now knows you're dating. Even this old viewer is jealous, such a pure young love. I stared at the screen, feeling cold waves ripple through me. So this was another move David made after his rebirth. A calculated maneuver to expose my relationship with Willow to the public eye. In our past life, he'd kept our romance a secret from her parents because he didn't want Willow to hate him. This time, he had no intention of protecting us, but he also didn't want to get his hands dirty. He wasn't going to run tattling to her parents himself. So the news segment was perfect. He volunteered for the interview, knowing the camera would pan right past us. It let him blow up our relationship in public, while keeping himself safely out of it. I heard the sound of a key turning in the front door. My dad was home. I was just about to head to my room when he barged in, crossed the floor in 2 steps, and yanked me into the living room by my arm. He cursed nonstop, dragging me forward with brute force. So you've learned how to date now? Huh, not bad. Who was that girl you walked out with? Did you screw her yet? I'm telling you, the sooner you get her. I kicked him hard, cutting him off. He screamed and threw me onto the couch, bending halfway over. He jabbed a finger at my face and launched into another stream of insults. He didn't have much vocabulary, no education, just violence. He ran out of words quickly. He paused, catching his breath, glaring as he tried to think of new ways to insult me. I used the moment to prop myself up and grab an empty bottle from the table. Without hesitating, I smashed it against his forehead. He yelped and stumbled away. I jumped off the couch and sprinted to my room, slamming the door shut and locking it. Outside, I heard him pacing, opening drawers, probably looking for antiseptic wipes. In our house, those were more essential than salt or soy sauce. Soon, I heard him swearing through clenched teeth, dabbing at his wound. You little bastard. Then suddenly, I heard him mutter something proudly to himself. Hey, ruthless hands, cold heart, just like me. Not like that whore of a mom. Yeah, definitely my kid. I slid down behind the door, my back to the wood, burying my face in my hands. This was my broken home, my messed up parents. So no, it didn't surprise me that David looked down on me. I couldn't even blame him that much. What I couldn't understand was this. He claimed to love Willow, but in our past life, he worshipped her like some untouchable goddess. Now, he sees her as trash, disgusting, beneath him. Has he ever truly tried to understand her? Does he even know who she is? Why she's so quiet? Why she avoids people? Why she struggles with anxiety? Chapter 5. Because of what happened with Willow, my dad and I got into a full-blown fight. I couldn't help but worry. Was Willow facing the same nightmare at her home? She didn't have a private phone, and I couldn't go to her house. All I could do was wait, nervous, uneasy, powerless, lying in bed. I scrolled through my phone, watching classmates post all kinds of celebration photos in our class group chat. Some were out singing karaoke, some were drinking and eating, and a few had already kicked off their summer vacations with wild trips. No one messaged me. To everyone, I was just the son of a thug myself. My father had once stabbed a man to death in a gang fight and served time for it. My mom was labeled a bad woman. She ran off with another man when I was just a year old, leaving me behind with my aging grandma. Grandma was a welfare recipient, one of the city's struggling poor. She sold fruit at the alleyway corner to scrape together a living. She never dared to stock expensive produce. Her stand mostly held wrinkled, dried up leftovers. I always suspected that she wasn't really selling fruit, she was selling hardship. But thankfully, the world still had kind people. In winter, beneath her faint, yellowing light bulb, hurried white-collar workers would stop at her stand out of compassion and buy something, just to ease their conscience. With that tiny bit of strategic sorrow, and the kind of endurance that only comes from waking up before dawn and working past dusk, Grandma raised me until I was 12. Then she handed me over to my dad, who had just been released early on parole. Her last words before passing were, "Be good to Makoto." Maybe she wasn't a saint by society's standards. Maybe her little fruit stand had a touch of emotional blackmail in it. But to me, she was the best grandma in the world. Whenever someone bought from her, her face would light up like a sunflower. She'd grin and tell me, "There's still a lot of good people in this world." That was my first understanding of how life worked. Be a good person that way. Grandma will smile that way. She'll like me. But my classmates didn't know any of that. To them, I was just a punk with dyed blonde hair, bad grades, and a cocky attitude, a troublemaker. There were rumors I was part of some gang, always surrounded by little henchmen, bullying whoever rubbed me the wrong way and dragging people into bathrooms to beat them up. Behind me, apparently, there were big-name gangsters who had my back. And of course, the juiciest part of the rumors, that I'd tricked multiple girls into sleeping with me, then milked them for money. The truth? It's honestly pathetic. As this so-called school delinquent, I spent most of my free time clacking away at a keyboard. My bad grades had less to do with ability, and more to do with how much I hated teachers. I instinctively tuned them out, like my second-grade homeroom teacher. who aired out my dad's criminal past in class and had everyone vote whether I should be banished to sit alone in the corner, or the 4th grade teacher who slapped me for being late and screamed that I was a bastard. I hated them all, even when I got into a better school, with kinder teachers. That hatred had already been etched into my bones. I couldn't bear to listen in class, couldn't bring myself to accept them as teachers. I kept waiting for the masks to fall, to see their true faces, ugly, soft, greasy, bloated, contorted. But I wrote damn good essays, so good. The top class teachers often used them as model examples. The only reason I made it into the honors liberal arts class in high school was because the language teacher liked my writing. On a certain website, I'd even started making money from my stories. Some classmate on a cruise just posted their vacation expenses. Out of boredom, I did the math. My writing income was enough to pay for a trip for 2. I scrolled through the feed one last time. Still nothing outside. I put down my phone and closed my eyes, ready to sleep. Then I heard it. 3 soft knocks on the window. Rhythmic, familiar. It was Willow. My home was on the 2nd floor of an old state-owned factory dormitory. The building dated back to the 70s or 80s, crumbling outside, decaying within. Its only upside was the huge tree outside the balcony. Thick trunk, plenty of branches, perfect for climbing. Seeing Willow through the glass made my heart skip. Climbing trees wasn't that dangerous for her. Her face was pale, eyes dazed and unfocused. I opened the window and helped her inside. She pressed her face into the side of my neck and curled into my arms. I reached out and gently stroked the back of her head. A moment later, I heard it. Her quiet, muffled sobs breaking through the silence. Chapter 6. Every time Willow cried, it felt like a storm pouring down inside my chest. Heavy, endless, soaking through the mountains and rivers of my heart. I never cried. One of the reasons my mother gave for abandoning me was that I was born without tears. She said I was a cold-hearted, cursed child destined for a short life. Raising me would bring her no return. In high school, after earning my first payment for writing, I secretly went to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor told me I had underdeveloped tear ducts, a congenital issue. I'd need artificial eye drops just to ease the constant dryness. Willow was the opposite. She cried easily, often, and deeply. The first time we ever crossed paths was after school. In the gymnasium, I stumbled upon her sitting in the corner, face buried in her hands, crying silently, like I always did when I saw someone cry. I walked over and handed her a pack of tissues. She waved me off without even looking, her voice hoarse. Go away. I sat down quietly a few steps away, in the unlit corner. I crossed my legs and just watched her shoulders twitch now and then, suddenly and sharply, watched her chest rise and fall like a panicked frog, breathing fast and shallow, as if every breath she took couldn't make it past her throat. What did it feel like, to cry like that? To cry hard enough to actually feel something release. Eventually, she ran out of tears, lowered her hands. Her reddened eyes scanned the dark gym in a daze. When she saw me, she jolted. Why, you're still here, she stammered. I stood up and patted the dust off my pants, just about to leave. Thanks, by the way. She frowned, probably irritated, but her curiosity got the better of her. Thanks, for what? Thanks for crying for me, I said, smiling. I was born without tears, you know. You have no idea how painful that is. Watching you cry, it felt like I got to cry, too. It was kind of cathartic. From that day on, we slowly grew closer. She began to tell me her secrets. To the outside world, Willow was the beautiful, smart top student, the campus goddess with a pair of perfect, golden parents. They were both professors, educated in the U.S., charming, articulate, and polite. No one knew the truth. Behind closed doors, the couple only agreed on one thing: raising their daughter with maximum efficiency and zero emotional mess. Everything Willow did had to meet their standards of optimization. After every meal, the dishes had to be placed in a designated position. Her bowl had to be spotless, clean enough to pass as rinsed. Her chopsticks couldn't have a single grain of rice on them. A poorly cleaned bowl meant extra work for the person washing. Extra work was inefficient. She was allowed 1 piece of fruit per day. No more, might cause diarrhea, but also not less. Vitamin deficiency would lead to illness. No snacks, none of any kind, because snacks might also lead to illness, and illness meant hassle. In short, every part of Willow's life had to be calibrated to avoid causing her parents even the slightest inconvenience. She was nearly a legal adult, but her room wasn't allowed to have a lock. She didn't even have her own phone. To seem civilized, her parents bought the newest iPhone, but left it on the dining table as a shared family device. Willow could use it, but she wasn't allowed to change the password. And what happened if she disobeyed? Her parents were intellectuals. They didn't scream obscenities or throw punches like my scumbag dad. No, they had their own brand of civilized cruelty. They built a small, special dark room at home, designed with soundproofing and blackout materials. Once the door closed and the lights were off, no sound, no light, nothing. Her parents called it a more advanced form of discipline. Every time Willow talked about that room, she trembled, all over. Her earliest memory of the little dark room dated back to when she was 5 years old. On her way home from school, she bumped into one of her father's graduate students. That cheerful, always smiling older boy bought her an ice cream, then casually mentioned the encounter to her father. Her father locked her in the little dark room for a whole day. No food, no bathroom breaks. She had to relieve herself inside. Can you imagine? A 5-year-old girl, trapped in total darkness, alone with her own waste for 24 hours, down to the very second. She must have cried, until her voice broke. She must have screamed, until her throat went raw. But the world outside remained dead silent. All she could hear was her own crying and screaming. Eventually, even her own sobs faded away. Maybe then she could hear the faint trickle of herself wetting her pants. Every time I think of what she went through, a chill runs down my spine. Suddenly, my own dad, an ex-convict, a foul-mouthed bastard, seems almost endearing by comparison. A girl like Willow, of course, wasn't allowed to cry. Crying was trouble. It meant the adults had to deal with her emotions, and that was something they simply wouldn't do. So she had to find places to cry where no one could see her. But even school wasn't safe. That day, anyone could have walked into the gym. It just happened to be me. I told her she could come to my house, to my room, close the door and cry as much as she wanted. I took her hand, led her to see the big tree, pointed up at the balcony with the oversized wind chime. That's my room. Whether my light's on or not, you can always knock on my window. Just 3 knocks. I'll know it's you. I'll open the door. That summer after our second year of high school, Willow came to my house for the first time. It was after the placement exams. She had a fever during the test, didn't do well, ranked 5th in the year instead of 1st. Her punishment was 2 days of confinement in the dark room. When she showed up at my place, she looked like a ghost. Her long hair was messy, her eyes empty. What worried me most was the thick bandage wrapped around her arm. That day, she had tried to kill herself, but right before she lost consciousness, she thought of me, of our promise. I had once told her, when we finish college, we'll leave, go far away, somewhere they'll never find us. That voice, my voice, pulled her back from the edge. She fumbled her way to the drawer, found the gauze, stopped the bleeding, applied the medicine. Then she sat back down at her desk, and quietly went back to solving practice problems. Her parents saw the wound on her wrist but chose to ignore it. They didn't ask, didn't say a word, as if speaking it out loud might invite a nightmare they didn't want to deal with. After dinner, she placed her bowl neatly in its designated spot. Then she said she was going to study with a classmate, and walked out the door. She came to my house, just like I told her. She cried in fits and starts, choking on her own sobs. I didn't know how to comfort her. Then, almost like I was possessed, I leaned in and kissed her. That was the kiss that sealed our bond. So in a way, I guess I was the one who made the first move. Maybe that's what David meant when he called me shameless. Chapter 7. In our past life, Willow didn't learn about my death until after the college entrance exams. I don't know why, but after I died, my soul didn't vanish. Instead, it lingered, drifting around her and David. Unable to leave, she went mad. Ran to my house like a storm, only to find my father in my room, packing up my things. He slapped her hard, again and again, yelling at her to get out. Her lip bled, but she just stood there, dazed, hoarse and begging. Sir, please, please give Makoto back to me, please. I'm begging you. Her cheeks were swollen from the blows, her speech slurred, but she didn't even notice. She just kept repeating the same broken plea. Please, give Makoto back. It was David who rushed over and stopped my father by threatening to call the police. That's the only reason he let them go. David stayed with her on the curb outside my house until dawn broke. He was the one who answered her parents' phone call, telling them Willow was helping him with a project and would be pulling an all-nighter. To the outside world, Willow's parents were always the picture of warmth and civility. Naturally, they didn't question a thing. It was David who got her through that long, sunless winter of grief. He was the one who caught her every time she tried to end her life, the one who coaxed her into eating, forced her to walk, pushed her to speak. Even after the exam results came out, it was David, together with her parents, who filled out her college application forms. Not medicine. Her mental state made the path impossible. Instead, they chose biology at a different university, one in the same city as his. 4 years, he slowly, piece by piece, made his way into her heart. After graduation, they both stayed in that city for work. When things became stable, David proposed. Willow didn't want a wedding. She was terrified her parents would show up at the ceremony, though she'd tried to escape for years. But David insisted. He needed a grand wedding to bring closure to his years of bitter, one-sided love. She gave in, for his sake, even though, at the ceremony, she faced her parents with stiff, clumsy limbs. The host even joked that she looked so happy she'd forgotten how to walk. After they got married, David often complained that Willow treated him with cold politeness, nothing like the passion she once showed me. I found that odd. Wasn't it that same aloof, untouchable version of Willow that David had fallen in love with in the first place? Why didn't he like it now? But he started to see the other side of her. One day, Willow took a call from her father. On the other end, he berated her, called her trash, useless, a woman who couldn't even bear a grandchild. Not one achievement in all these years to make her parents proud. Even through the phone, her body shook uncontrollably. After she hung up, she squatted down like a child, face buried in her hands, tears streaming between her fingers. David came out and saw her like that, and without thinking, he snapped, "Why are you so dramatic? So your parents yelled at you a little? Big deal. All parents do it for their kids' own good." Though he immediately apologized, earnestly and repeatedly, even again that night, and the next morning, I knew that entire day, Willow's body didn't stop trembling. I knew that version of her. That was the Willow who was using every ounce of strength just to hold back her tears. After that, she really did stop crying. Years after my death, my condition, my inability to cry, passed on to her. And then came the 8th year of their marriage. David had long wanted to start a family, but Willow told him she didn't like children. She wanted to live child-free. David disagreed. His parents were pressuring him for grandkids. He wanted 2 children, 1 boy, 1 girl. They argued over it. Frustrated, David stormed into the study. By accident, he discovered a long-forgotten metal box buried deep in the drawer. He took it out. Even before he opened it, he already had a guess, and he was right. Inside was everything Willow and I had shared. Notes filled with silly love confessions, movie tickets, crumpled receipts from bubble tea shops with hearts drawn on them, a to-read book list, a random phone number. David didn't know what that number was. He put it aside carelessly, but I froze. My soul burned, like it was being boiled alive, because I remembered that number. It was mine. That winter, during our 2nd year of high school, she passed by our neighborhood with her parents. The longing to see me overwhelmed everything else, but she couldn't slip away. That social anxious girl somehow worked up the courage to borrow a phone from a passing lady. The first thing she said to me on that call, with her voice trembling through sniffles, was, "Makoto, I miss you so much." David flipped to the last page and found a sheet of paper. His hand shook as he held it. It was our life list, the one Willow and I wrote together. Go to college together, study abroad together, take a cruise around the world together, and the final wish, the one that shattered David completely, have a child together. Willow walked in just in time to see it. She stood frozen at the doorway, staring blankly for a long while, even forgetting to comfort David, whose eyes had turned red. Truth was, she hadn't touched that box in years. Ever since they got married, Willow had forbidden herself from looking back at the past. If David had been calmer, he might have noticed the thick layer of dust on the box, and if Willow had wanted to, the misunderstanding could have been explained easily, but neither of them said a word. David was a man of manners, very conscious of his composure. He soon stood up stiffly and said, trying to sound calm, "Your parents are here. Let's go pick them up from the airport." Willow flinched instinctively, but seeing David on the verge of breaking down, she quietly nodded. It was David who had invited her parents. He hoped they could help persuade Willow, face to face, to have children. On the way to the airport, for reasons even he probably didn't understand, David brought up my name, that forbidden name, buried in silence for almost 8 years, slipped out of his mouth like a ghost. "You know," he said, "the night before the college entrance exam, Makoto wanted to meet you, but I didn't want him to distract you, so I never gave you the note." I wanted to lunge forward and cover his mouth. I wanted to block Willow's ears, but I had no body. I was transparent, powerless. I couldn't change a thing. All I could do was watch as Willow, who'd been focused on driving, slowly turned her head toward him, inch by inch, like a machine running out of programming. In a voice that sounded almost childlike, she asked, "What did you say?" I didn't catch that. David panicked. "Watch the road, Willow. Focus. What are you doing?" But she asked again, "What did you say just now?" I said, "I didn't give you his note, Willow. That was 8 years ago. Makoto's long gone. You need to be rational." "I see," Willow murmured, nodding blankly. She turned her head forward again, lips moving in a whisper. I drifted closer to listen. She was saying, "Makoto. Makoto, I miss you. I miss you so much." And in the next moment, I watched her calmly spin the steering wheel and press down the accelerator. The car veered into a twisted arc across the bridge, smashed through the guardrail, and soared straight toward the river. "No, Willow. No, don't do this. I want you to live. I want you to live well," I screamed, diving downward, trying to lift the car, to push Willow out, to open the door, anything, but I couldn't. I couldn't do a thing. Suspended midair, I trembled and screamed with everything I had. "Willow, I never wanted this. It doesn't matter if you marry David. It doesn't matter if you two have a dozen kids. It doesn't matter if you forget me completely. I just want you to live, to cry for me, to laugh for me, to feel love, and be loved, to face this world gently, in my place." But no matter how loud I shouted, how painfully I cried, no one could hear me. It wasn't until 10 minutes after the car had fully sunk beneath the water that something changed. The space around me rippled. In a flash of blinding light, David and I were both pulled back to that night before the college entrance exam. And that's when I finally understood why I hadn't been able to reincarnate, why I hadn't moved on, because this time, the real story was about to begin. And this time, he wouldn't save Willow. He'd just watch, coldly, as she and I spiraled into madness and destruction. Chapter 8. Today's college entrance exam TV special was the first grand gift he gave us after being reborn. When Willow appeared before me, she looked just as pale and shattered as the day she first came to my house in our second year. The moment I opened the door, she threw her arms around me. Tears soaked my collar as she sobbed softly, and I gently patted her back. After a while, she sniffled, then opened her backpack. Inside were her ID card and student ID. She looked at me and said quietly, "My dad told me to break up with you. He said if I don't, I can rot in the dark room. I'm not allowed out until I come to my senses." This time, I didn't give in. I fought back. Makoto. No wonder there were cuts on her face and bruises at the corner of her mouth. I reached out to touch her cheek, but she winced and turned away. After a moment, she leaned back into my hand, rubbing the uninjured side of her face against my palm. Like a stray kitten with nowhere to go, she murmured, "Your dad's so violent, and you still dare to defy him. I can't let you outdo me." I couldn't help but laugh. "I'm not your average guy. You know, I'm a thug, a delinquent. I'm not scared of him." Willow couldn't stay at my place long term, so we talked it over and decided, why not go travel while we still could? I gave my scumbag dad a quick heads up, told him I'd be going on a trip with a female classmate. While he cursed at me from the doorway, I calmly packed my bag, totally unfazed. He chased after me, stuffing a card into my pocket. "Your old man's got money. There's $5,000 on this card. When you run out, come the hell back. Just don't go pulling any shady crap. No stealing or scamming." Before he could say anything nastier, I grabbed my suitcase and bolted out of the dorm courtyard. And just like that, unlike our past life, this time after the exam, Willow was practically kicked out of her house. David called me once, very politely. He asked if I knew where Willow had gone. His voice tried to sound casual, but it couldn't hide the smug glee beneath it. "I'm not worried or anything," he said, "but we were neighbors, and my parents are kind of concerned. You know how badly she clashed with her folks because of you. Uncle Lou and Auntie only have one daughter. Willow's always been their pride and joy. It's natural they can't accept her secretly dating someone, especially someone from your background." I gently nudged Willow off my chest, gave her a shoo gesture, then answered with perfect seriousness, "Willow's really upset right now. She feels guilty. She wants to go back but is scared her parents won't forgive her. And besides, I'm not done having fun yet. No way I'm letting her go back anytime soon." Willow let out a muffled grunt and sat up, glaring at me with those jet black eyes full of confusion and annoyance. Yeah. I couldn't really explain it to her. David had returned to this life with one goal: to watch Willow fall into disgrace, to watch me spiral into failure, to see both of us crash and burn. If things didn't go the way he wanted, he'd retaliate. It's not the thief you fear, it's the thief who never stops thinking about you. And David never stops thinking about us. He was clearly pleased with my answer. His tone got lighter, almost cheerful, too relaxed to even fake sincerity. He said, "Her parents, well, we neighbors will keep trying to talk to them. Tell her not to worry. When she comes to her senses, she should just go home and apologize." He didn't bother persuading me, probably didn't think I was worth the effort. Or maybe he hoped I'd drag Willow down with me, into complete, irreversible ruin. The college admission results came out. Just like in the previous life, David was accepted into the best university without surprise. But unlike before, Willow wasn't in the same city this time. She didn't choose biology again. Instead, she picked the top journalism school in the country. Many people shook their heads and sighed. With grades like hers, wasn't journalism a waste of talent? David posted a tweet. The image was of a featherless phoenix pecking at grain with hens in a chicken coop. The caption read, "Everyone has their karma. Let it be. Don't interfere." Willow glanced at the tweet on my phone, confused. She didn't get it, but I did. He was reminding himself, never again. Never again would he play the savior. Never again would he interfere with someone else's fate. If Willow, once a phoenix, now chose to live like a hen, then he had no choice but to respect it. In the replies, someone kissed up, "Your philosophical depth is awe-inspiring. Please enlighten us mere mortals." Maybe, I really am the only one who understands him. He broke free, but no one knew. He escaped the abyss, and no one cheered. How bitter must that feel? If he didn't post something for attention, how else would the world know he'd cut his mortal ties, and drained his golden sea of emotion dry? Chapter 9. Willow and I began our college life. Aside from my studies, I kept writing. The manuscript fees were enough to cover my tuition and housing. Willow was stubborn. Once her family cut her off, she gritted her teeth and started working at a tutoring center. By the end of the first semester, not only had she earned enough for tuition, but she'd also slowly overcome her social anxiety. For 4 years, we supported each other, carried one another through rough patches, and both earned solid results in our respective schools and majors. David, meanwhile, was living his best life. His WeChat feed was filled with glamorous seminars, friends of all colors, black, white, brown, you name it. Truly the kind of life where you laugh with scholars and have no dealings with fools. Every now and then, he'd call me, pretending to casually ask about Willow and me. Of course, I only told him the worst parts, twisting the truth, adding some drama so he could keep imagining that Makoto and Willow are living like dogs, tearing each other apart, spiraling toward jail. He was satisfied, and so was I. Only when he truly let go, stopped watching us, could I finally breathe easy. In our senior year, David made it official on WeChat. He had a girlfriend, a junior from his grad program. I was overjoyed. Willow snatched my phone, rolled her eyes, and said, "You care way too much about David. Sometimes I really wonder, between me and him, who do you actually like?" I shot her a look. Take a wild guess. Her eyes sparkled, a wickedly seductive smile curling on her lips as she stood on tiptoe and kissed me. Voice soft and hazy, she murmured, "I'm not guessing. You're mine, always mine, and I'm yours, forever. Only yours." I never told her that David's girlfriend, from a side angle, kind of resembled her, but my joy didn't even last 6 months. David broke up with the girl, and just like that, he started calling me again. It drove me nuts, but I still had to play it carefully. I said, "Willow and I are job hunting, not going well. As you can imagine, we've been arguing for 4 years straight. We've got no money, still relying on my dad's support." Then she said I was useless and cheated on me. So I got back at her. I cheated too. Now we're just doing our own thing. Basically, life is a complete mess. Grades are terrible. No certifications. What company would hire us? But he wasn't so easily fooled anymore. After a long silence, he suddenly asked, "Does Willow still love you?" I quickly replied, "What's love, anyway? When you're broke, love's just another burden. We come from different worlds, speak different languages. Once the passion's gone, there's nothing left but disappointment. I'm just a small-time nobody. Can't see the world the way she does. And she's still got that spoiled princess temper, always looking down on me." Sigh. Poor people don't get to fall in love. Only then did he hang up, finally satisfied. I wiped the sweat off my forehead. My heart was pounding. This lie was already stretched to the breaking point. Next time he calls, what am I supposed to say? That I sold Willow overseas to harvest organs? Or that she sold me to be a eunuch in Thailand? Ugh, I needed to wrap this up fast. So I had Willow sign her job contract. It was the plan we'd made back during that fateful exam year. She took a position with a state-owned company, volunteered for a long-term assignment in Africa. I, as a French major, could go too. They needed translators on construction sites. Once we left, far across mountains and oceans, that noble, righteous Mr. David would finally struggle to find us. Let's hope the gods bless us. Chapter 10. 10 years later, Willow and I finished our overseas assignment. With the hefty stipends we'd saved up over the years, plus the millions I earned from writing. Side note, I published 2 long-form non-fiction novels set in Africa, which became quite popular. Even print publishers reached out to discuss physical editions. We bought a house in a coastal city. It came with a yard and a big tree, and we settled down there. Willow and I found new jobs, and we also got our daughter, Alicia, into a decent public elementary school. Alicia grew up in Africa. She's ethnically Asian but dark as a mudfish, all teeth and no eyes when she smiles. And if you threw her into a pile of coal, you'd never find her. She speaks Mandarin fluently until exam day. Then she crashes hard, especially in classical Chinese. Willow would chase her around the yard with a feather duster, yelling, "You've really forgotten your roots. Huh? Even your black sisters speak better Chinese than you." But Alicia wasn't scared. She knew I had her back. Just like a wild little African monkey, she'd leap with a swoosh and vanish up the tree. Well, that tree climbing skill, definitely inherited from her mom. Willow would grab the fishing rod and chase her down from the branches. And then, the moment she saw me show up, Alicia would leap down, wrap herself around my leg, and start fake crying like, "Wah wah wah." Honestly, looking at Willow now, flailing around and squabbling with her daughter, you'd never guess she was once the melancholic princess, the untouchable goddess. If the male lead saw her like this now, he'd probably cry on the spot, shake his head in disbelief. As for my trashy dad, after 8 years of joyfully harassing me over the phone, he suddenly went quiet. Turns out the woman who abandoned him and skipped town, my traitorous mom, finally got tired of playing outside and came back. And he actually let her. Apparently, the two of them never officially filed for divorce back then. So now, technically, maybe, sort of, they don't even need to remarry. Now those two old devils are back under one roof, throwing punches daily and calling me nonstop to air each other's dirty laundry. I want to shout, "Heaven sees all, let the evil torment the evil." But whenever I hear the ruckus from their end of the call, I swallow my words, say it out loud, and they might think I'm being filial, sincerely blessing their reunion. God forbid. As for Willow, she'd severed ties with her parents years ago. No contact. No updates. The only future interaction might be in the form of a lawyer's letter, either to enforce eldercare obligations or to handle inheritance. I'm betting on the latter. There's this unconfirmed rumor floating around that some highly educated elites tend to be emotionally detached. That certainly tracks with Willow's parents. Their fulfillment comes from academia and their careers. Children aren't joy to them, they're just a social obligation they were forced to take on. And like any unwelcome obligation, they dealt with it bluntly and unkindly. When Willow left home, aside from a few polite phone calls during her early college years, they never really tried to bring her back. Even after Alicia was born, they only met her once, dutifully, over video call. No doting grandparent vibes whatsoever. Even the name we picked for Alicia, neither super traditional nor overly Western, they didn't comment on at all. At this point, it's clear, staying out of each other's lives is the last bit of mutual respect we have left. Just when everything was finally settling down, I got a call from a number that had been silent for years. "Makoto," said the voice. "You and Willow are back in the country. Let's grab a cup of tea. Catch up." I froze for a second. The string in my head that had been relaxed for so long slowly tightened. "Should I bring Willow?" I asked. David went quiet for a moment. Then I clearly heard him sigh. "Soft, quick. No need to bring her. Just us two men catching up." Chapter 11. David went out of his way to buy a plane ticket from the city where he works and flew over. We decided to meet at the bar in the 5-star resort hotel where he was staying. When he appeared, he was wearing a custom-made trench coat, luxurious leather shoes, and had his hair meticulously combed, a bona fide success story. He looked completely different from the studious class committee member I remembered, who used to wear black-framed glasses, shut out the world, and devoted himself wholly to books. Of course, time hadn't only changed him, it changed me, too. The kid who once had yellow-dyed hair now sports short black hair, a tan complexion, and the amicable face of a middle-aged man. Separated by lifetimes, adding up to 3 or 4 decades, we sized each other up and nodded politely. After we sat, the waiter brought our drinks. He was the first to speak, in a tone of absolute certainty. "You lied to me, Makoto. You've been lying to me all this time." I put down my coffee cup, looked up, and met his gaze calmly. "You're the one who wanted to deceive yourself. I was only helping you do it." His hand gripped the spoon abruptly, pupils narrowing to pinpoints. We were both smart. We didn't need many words. Just a few were enough to make things clear. "You were reborn, too," he muttered, not really looking for an answer, more like talking to himself. "I've always suspected as much, but I didn't want to believe it. I would rather believe everything you said was true, that you and Willow tore each other apart like dogs and went straight to hell, than believe you tricked me, that you two actually ended up living happily together." Exactly, because if Willow and I truly lived happily ever after, then everything he did in his past life would have been in vain, a clown's act. You have to understand, when he hid the note I left behind, he genuinely considered himself righteous, trying to save a naive young girl who'd lost her way. If that pillar of belief was shattered, how could he reconcile it in his own logic? How could he cling to his moral high ground? But he quickly found a way. "So you were reborn, too. Now it all makes sense." He folded his hands together on the marble tabletop, looking composed as he spoke. "You must have turned over a new leaf and completely changed yourself. And that's why you and Willow's fate changed." "Excuse me." That comment was drenched in condescension and arrogance from start to finish. "David, to this day, do you still not see the root cause of why you failed in both of your lives?" I leaned back as well, sitting up straight and meeting his gaze directly. "I didn't turn over a new leaf, because there was nothing for me to correct. I'm the same person I was in my previous life. Willow is the same Willow as before. You lived across from her all those years, from childhood to adulthood, yet you never saw her silent struggles or heard her unspoken cries for help. You refused to accept her moments of weakness or tears. You only wanted to imagine a flawless goddess to satisfy your lofty fantasies. It's all the same as before, unchanged, down to the last detail." My voice wasn't loud, but each word carried my past resentment, pain, and disdain. "And you, just like in your previous life, remain arrogant and conceited, blind to the real person, fixated only on some simplified, fake persona. In your mind, you stubbornly believe that only people with good grades deserve others with equally good grades. Only families of similar social standing can have true, enduring love and marriage. The poor must be evil and cunning, because poverty breeds wickedness. The wealthy must be kind and just, because fortune nurtures virtue. But there's an old saying, it's often those of lower status or those who aren't taken seriously who value loyalty and affection the most, while those who are educated and knowledgeable tend to be cold and unfeeling. You think that because I was poor and did badly in school, my involvement with Willow could only drag her to hell. But have you ever considered that grades aren't the only standard by which a life is measured? That there isn't just one path to success, just like there isn't some self-evident formula for choosing a life partner. People spend a lifetime searching in this vast sea of humanity for the one who completes their soul, who can make them feel pain, tears, laughter, or joy. That person may not be perfect, outstanding, wealthy, or even healthy, but once you find them, you realize every step was worth it. Such a relationship isn't necessarily healthy. Take my own scumbag parents, for example. By any measure, they're the exact opposite of model parents, but I can't deny that, for each other, they might genuinely have been the one. Even Willow's parents lived their entire lives together in a cramped apartment, indifferent but under one roof, and they treated their daughter with the same detached attitude. Isn't that also some strange form of symbiosis? Life isn't a neatly drawn blueprint that only displays health, positivity, perfection, and virtue. Life is a tangled palette of colors, where light and darkness coexist, where baseness and nobility share the same canvas. Nature brings forth all kinds of creations, each unique, and that, precisely, is what makes our world so magnificent. I continued. Every person is the master of their own destiny, free to make decisions and bear the risks and responsibilities that come with them. That's the true joy of being human. Willow loves me for her own reasons. What right do you have to look down on her and arbitrarily decide what's good and what's bad? If your goodwill is rejected, you then go all out to drag both Willow and me down into the stinking gutter, into the very depths of hell. Do you really want us to rot and stink so that we might repent, atone, and thereby highlight your supposed foresight and righteousness? Do you believe that because you excel academically and come from a high background, you are automatically just, morally superior, and an unchallengeable god? Must everything you desire always be served to you on a golden platter with deference? David, you need to wake up. The real world does not revolve around your will, it follows its own logic. If you cannot see through it, if you cannot accept it, then you will forever pin your hopes for happiness on the misfortunes of Willow and me. You will never be free. No sooner had my words fallen than David suddenly sprang to his feet, hurling his coffee cup so hard it smashed at my feet. In the very next moment, he raised his fist to lunge at me, but I held him down firmly and struck him hard across the face. Instantly, he ceased his attack and slumped back. I retrieved a tissue to wipe off the cream smeared on my pant leg and signaled the visibly nervous waiter. After paying for my own coffee, I stood up and looked at the man opposite me. He was trembling all over. I said, David, spare yourself for the role you played in my tragic death in my previous life. Live your own life properly and don't come looking for me again. I returned home to find Willow and Alicia sprawled under a tree, with two large open cardboard boxes beside them filled with assorted pieces of wood, big, small, thick, and thin. Alicia had mentioned not long ago that she wanted a treehouse. I took a quick shower, changed as fast as I could, and joined their little workgroup. Damn, those two are so quick. If I had been even a moment later, I'd have missed out on the final steps. Once the treehouse was finished, I had a flash of inspiration. I grabbed a paint palette, and the three of us began to paint on the treehouse with our colorful little fingers in a whirlwind of creativity. Just then, Willow stole a quick kiss from me, then suddenly paused and cried out, "My soup is simmering in the pot." Ah! She clutched both her hands and, like a rabbit hit by an arrow, dashed into the back kitchen. Alicia gleefully climbed into my arms and, catching me off guard, smeared my face with oil paint. I wandered around in search of a handy stick and said, "You're in trouble now, little rascal. Have you written your composition today?" She shrieked, jumped down from the tree, and slipped into the kitchen, holding the stick. I stood before the treehouse, looking at my children, my beloved, my home. Amid the noisy twilight, the world and I shared a knowing smile. Life is truly beautiful.